earliest
I
memory?
do remember my earliest memory ever, and it's actually great to be sitting in the sun because it's of the sun. I guess I was very teeny because I was standing up in some kind of crib or play fence or something like that, and it must have been summertime, and the front door was open, and there was a beam of sunlight coming through, and I can remember just being enraptured by it. Um, so that's my earliest memory, just that moment.
Wow. How do you know it's like your first ever memory?
Um, well, I can really remember holding on to the bar,
Yeah.
right? So I'm born in January, so
Yeah.
I assume I must have been 18 months old or so. That it was summertime of
Yeah.
the next year because I was standing.
Yeah.
Um, and my next memories don't come until I'm like 5 or 6. Obviously not in the playpen. So, I'm pretty sure that's the first one. And I can remember when I remembered it. That when I had a newborn baby, my son, and I was in the hospital, and he was a couple days old, and I had him up on my shoulder, and all of a sudden he's got very, very still, and I kind of turned to see what he was looking at, and it was a shaft of sunlight coming through the hospital window, and he was just fixed on it as a little baby, and I just remember that myself, like how just stunning it was, or wondrous it was. I'm sure he has no memory of that. He was like 5 days old at the time, but that's my memory of it. And memories afterwards become, much more social. Not like that.
End of earliest memories. A new Canadian study is the first to systematically mark the onset of childhood amnesia in children rather than adults. The research shows that by our 10th birthday, our early preschool memories have receded into an inaccessible past. As a result, the lead researcher says, that further deepens the mystery around the fate of our earliest autobiographical memories. Quote, I expected that they would differ, but there's a striking similarity in the age of the earliest memory for adults and 10-year-olds, unquote, says Dr. Carol Peterson, a psychologist at Memorial University of Newfoundland. Her study, funded by Natural Sciences and Engineering Research Council of Canada, was published in the August issue of the journal Memory. The results extend what Dr. Peterson calls the paradox of surrounding childhood amnesia. Adults' inability to recall autobiographical events that occurred before the age of 4. 4 and 3-year-olds can readily recall events from their second year.
My first memory ever was actually of Ninja Turtles. I know it sounds kind of weird. You figure your earliest memory would be something more personal or intimate, but I'm an artist. I have a very varied life, and I think that most of the reasons why my life is like that, most of the reasons why I'm able to pursue multiple passions simultaneously on top of getting a graduate degree is because I started off liking to draw, and that liking to draw started off with Ninja Turtles, Leonardo, Michelangelo, Raphael, that whole noise. And I spent the majority of my early childhood drawing them in various positions and poses, and drawing their instruments in the background of the comic book and also the TV show.
Yet, by the age of 10, these earliest memories have receded behind what's been dubbed the reminiscence bump. Quote, we don't have any good models to explain this. The memories were there and had been verbally accessible. So why aren't they there anymore, unquote, says Dr. Peterson, who since the 1970s has explored the dynamics of children's autobiographical memories. For this study, Dr. Peterson and undergraduate students Valerie Grant and Leslie Boland asked 136 participants ages 6 to 19 for their earliest memories. It's a sample size that Dr. Peterson says provides statistically significant results.
What is your earliest memory ever? Playing with my mom. What's your earliest memory ever? Playing with my sister!
The researchers found that 6 to 9-year-olds recalled earlier events from when they were about 3 than did older children. However, there were no differences in the age of earliest memory among the older groups. Their earliest memories were from about 3.5 years of age. Thus, by 10 years old, participants' memories had entered an adult state of remembering. So what are our earliest memories?
I remember when I was around 2 years old, we were in Salt Lake City, and I was on a bumper car with my grandfather at some amusement park. I have another really beautiful memory
yes,
a little
we love
later.
to
You
hear
want to
it.
hear it? Okay. It was, I think, probably late summer outside of Eugene, Oregon. The family and another family was walking up the Row River. It's one of the rivers that flows off the Cascades. And you know, we were there for the day and stuff, and we were at a part of the river. The main part of the river was here, and there was like an offshoot that was like a little lake, and we were swimming under the water. And I remember looking up through the sunshine at salamanders, and they were red if you look down at them, but if you're swimming underneath them, they're gold color. I remember that. I was 4 or 5.
While previous researchers have found that a large number of adults' earliest memories are emotion-laden, Dr. Peterson's group, quote, found that the majority of early memories were about relatively mundane experiences, unquote. These range from the memory of looking at a flower growing out of a crack in the pavement to walking across a narrow bridge over a river. Only teenage girls 14 to 19 had a preponderance, about 40%, of negative first memories. Quote, "It's not at all clear why some things get into long-term memory and some do not," unquote, says Dr. Peterson. The researchers also found few differences between age group in how earliest events are remembered. All the participants recalled events with about the same level of narrative complexity, generally describing a snapshot of a moment in time. Quote, "Perhaps it's the level of narrative skill possessed at the age at which the memory was encoded, not the current narrative skill, that determines the structure of a recollection," unquote, write the authors.
I can hardly remember anything from back when I was young. I mean, the first things I can remember is kind of like being out in my backyard a little bit, and kind of pajamas with those little feet in them and stuff like that. But they're not specific about anything happening. They're just kind of generalized.
How old do you think you were when you were wearing those pajamas?
I was probably about maybe 3 years old or something like that.